Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a construction method that demands absolute, undeniable perfection from the very first step to the last. We're going to break down the incredible, high-stakes process of creating flawless, exposed concrete. The experts at Shimizu Corporation compare it to calligraphy, and honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. This isn't about building something piece by piece. No, it's about executing a single, perfect, irreversible stroke. You get one shot. There are absolutely no do-overs. And this is why. Just look at the difference. On the left, you've got a masterpiece, right? The surface is smooth, clean, and you can even see the beautiful grain from the wood formwork. But on the right, well, that's what happens when things go wrong. Permanent stains, blemishes, you name it. So let's pull back the curtain on the meticulous process that separates the two. Okay, so the secret to getting that perfect finish? It actually begins long before a single drop of concrete is ever poured. It all starts with preparing the canvas, so to speak. During this prep phase, everything, and I mean everything, hinges on two key elements: the reinforcing steel, which we call rebar, and the formwork, which is basically the mold that's going to shape the final product. And both of them have to be absolutely perfect. Now, here's where the high-stakes nature of this whole thing really kicks in. A tiny, almost invisible mistake during prep can snowball into a massive, ugly, and totally permanent problem down the line. For example, just look at this diagram. If the little binding wires they use to tie the rebar together happen to touch the inside of the formwork, rust can literally leach right through the concrete while it's setting. The result? A permanent stain on the outside surface. It's a tiny, tiny detail that can ruin the entire wall. Assembling the formwork itself is this whole multi-step dance where every single detail is crucial. You're not just slapping some panels together. This is precision engineering, right there on the construction site. And this is why every single panel edge has to be perfectly clean after every use. I'm talking spotless. Because even a tiny speck of dried concrete, like you see here, can create a gap between the panels, and poof, there goes your seamless finish. So for the crew, precision isn't just a goal. It's a non-negotiable requirement. They'll actually run strings along the tops and bottoms of the formwork just to make sure everything is in a perfectly straight line. Any little wave or misalignment in that formwork will be permanently fossilized in the final wall. All right, with the canvas prepped and perfect, it is time for that single decisive stroke, the pour. This is it. This is the moment of no return. The concrete pour itself is a highly coordinated ballet. It might just look like a bunch of workers, but it's more like a symphony orchestra. Teamwork, constant communication, timing, it's all got to be perfect. So as the concrete is flowing into the formwork, the team has another critical job. They've got to get all the trapped air bubbles out. If those bubbles get left behind, they create these little surface defects called pinholes, and that'll just ruin the final finish. And they do this using two main methods, often at the same time: tapping on the outside of the formwork and using these internal vibrators to basically shake the concrete from the inside. This shows those two techniques in action perfectly. On the left, you've got workers tapping the formwork, totally in sync with the pour, which helps those air bubbles rise to the surface. And at the exact same time as you see on the right, these internal vibrators are lowered down into the concrete, shaking it from within to make sure it fills every single nook and cranny around that rebar. So after the concrete has set, we finally get to the moment of truth. This is the grand reveal, where the artwork is finally unveiled from its mold. But, taking the formwork off, they call it demolding. It's not about brute force with a crowbar. No way. It's an incredibly delicate operation that requires just as much care and planning as putting it all together did in the first place. What's really fascinating here is that the disassembly is actually planned from the very beginning. They use specific techniques, like prying against little protective plates, to make sure they don't chip or scar the brand new and still pretty fragile concrete surface. I mean, the ultimate goal here is a surface so perfect it needs zero touch-ups. The whole premise is that the surface should never be modified. Why? Because any kind of repair, it doesn't matter how skillful it is, will almost certainly show up over time as the building weathers. But the work isn't done just because the forms are off. Nope. The final act in this performance is all about protecting the masterpiece, making sure it stays beautiful for decades. This involves a process called curing. Basically, the new concrete surface has to be protected from the sun and wind so it doesn't dry out too fast. If it dries too quickly, it can get weak and develop hairline cracks, which messes up both the look and the strength of the wall. Then, for long-term protection from weather and pollution, a transparent coating gets applied. And as you can see from this chart, there are a bunch of different types. They range from a simple surface impregnation that might last you 5 to 10 years, all the way up to these advanced photocatalyst coatings that can go for over 20 years.
Pretty cool, huh?
And this just hammers home the point that maintenance is never an afterthought. A super detailed long-term plan is actually created way back in the design stage, making sure that the building's beauty and its performance are preserved for its entire life. And the result of all that insane effort is this. From the obsessive cleaning of formwork to the perfectly timed choreography of the pour, the entire process is just a testament to this idea of construction as a high-stakes, one-shot art form. Which really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The next time you see a building with a flawless, exposed concrete facade, you'll know you're not just looking at a building material, you're looking at the permanent, frozen results of a single, perfect stroke.